Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your fantastical mechanical hosts.
I'm John.
And I'm CC, and this is the show where we review all the anime series from the previous season we did and didn't watch start to finish. We've reached the end of another season of anime, ladies and gentlemen, but before we take a short break and return with all the reviews for the soon-to-conclude summer season, we got 2 more shows on the menu. John is gonna head off the show by talking about the mobile game adaptation Granblue Fantasy, and then we'll both discuss the prequel to one of anime's oldest franchises, Astro Boy, with Atom the Beginning. So stay tuned, we'll be right back.
So, we all know that mobile games are about a dime a dozen, and that they're really kind of a crapshoot. But when a game really hits, it really hits. And Granblue Fantasy was no exception.
It doesn't necessarily guarantee a good anime adaptation, though.
I mean, that's true, but, look at all the other mobile games that got questionably popular enough to get anime adaptations. I mean, it's apparent, that some are more worthy than others.
Yeah, some have stories, some really don't.
Yeah, I think, wasn't there one you were looking at earlier this season, I think 18 If? I think that was based on a mobile game, and it was kind of strange.
Yeah, it just felt a bit lackluster. But I've heard good things about it from some people. So I don't know. I might go back to it. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just production-wise, it seemed a bit too lackluster. Mm-hmm. As I would have expected from Gonzo, but still.
Oh, that is right. I forgot who worked on it. Welp.
Yeah. So much for that. But yeah, how about Granblue Fantasy? That seemed promising, at least in terms of its origin, its setup, and everything. And I don't know if you've actually played the game. I haven't.
I played it for, a few months, but I have a bunch of other friends who play the game, and they're like, sometimes they stream the game, and I watch what they're doing, and seeing all of the crazy stuff that they had to put into their party to do stuff like, the end game raids and content. I just kind of look at it and I'm like, well, I'm never getting to this point.
Okay, is it like more of a dungeon crawler? Is it a story-driven, I don't know, turn-based RPG or something? Or is it a clicker?
It's one of those RPGs that relies on a gacha system to get your new weapons and characters. So
okay, I just completely lost interest in the game, at least.
I mean, there are some games. All right, no game does gacha well, just because it's a money sink. But Granblue Fantasy, the game, at least makes it a little more interesting. That when you get a weapon, you also get a new character. When you get certain weapons, you get new characters that can join your party. That spices it up a little bit, which is neat. Right. And that's something that's not really heavily as touched on in the show. But about the show, it's about the story itself, which describing a story from the game is the same as describing a story from the show. So it's all about this young man named Gran who lives a peaceful life in this sky island village of Zinkenstill with his lizard buddy Vern. And one day, there are these 2 young ladies, Catalina and Lyria, who defect from this Erst Empire, and they escape their captivity and find their way to the island that Gran's hometown is on. Well, the Empire comes knocking on their door, and Gran finds himself dragged into this conflict. He goes up against some of these Empire toughs, and he gets cut down. But he's saved by Lyria's mysterious power, which then binds their lives together. And after fending off, the commander that comes after them, they sort of say, hey, we should get out of here so that, the town doesn't have any more trouble come to it. And it kind of gives Gran the perfect excuse because he wanted to basically go on a skyfaring adventure to find his father. So,
sounds a bit like the opening of Secret of Mana. Kind of.
I mean,
where Randy is like exiled from the village, but he just found a sword that is has the ghost of his father embedded within, and he wants to search for what's behind that anyways. That's what that just reminded me of for some reason.
I mean, as far as I knew, a lot of the people at Cygames who worked on this game are ex-Square. Oh. So you got a little bit of tie back to your Final Fantasies, your Seiken Densetsu with that, and also the fact that the art is very. I feel like it's kind of a marriage between like a little bit of the Bravely games and a little bit of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is cool.
Yeah, it's the art is one of those is a weird thing. Like on the screenshots and in the trailers, I saw it looked really cool, and maybe those were from the game. I don't know, but when I actually saw the anime, some of the stuff looked just I don't know, rough. I don't know if that's the right word, rough or a bit unfinished, and that put me off in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to mention that, but since you brought it to the forefront,
sorry.
No, that's fine. The art style is, I guess you could call it a little, like, not in a negative connotation, but like in this actual sense of the word, sketchy. But I feel like it kind of falls in line with the art style that was used from the game. And I know you weren't big on that, but I've, appreciated that it, kept the same sort of feeling to it.
Yeah, I don't even know. I probably would have warmed up to it. For some reason, I never went back to the series after the first episode. Not because it was bad or anything. It just maybe fell, I don't know, out of my sight or anything. I just completely forgot about it until I just, reviewed, checked which, stuff we review next. And I was like, all right. Just gonna review Granblue Fantasy. There was that show. Why the fuck didn't I keep on watching that, or at least give it another 2 episodes or something? I don't know. It just fell not out of favor, but just I don't know. I for some reason I never went back to it. But initially, the only thing that really put me off was like the art style, because it was so unusual to me, because I wasn't really familiar with the game, and that looked like, okay, this is like you said, looks like a bit more like a sketch and. Not clean, but maybe that would work favorably when it comes to the actual animation. I don't know. Do they do some stuff with it where some of the animation feels like more fluid and loose, just because that works with this kind of style, or is it? Is the animation itself kind of standard or restricted? Or
I will say that I feel like Cygames Gotcha Money kind of got A1 to get off their asses and do some good work for once.
Well,
because the animation was pretty solid throughout, and like the fight scenes were really cool. So it had that going for it. That's for certain.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, A1 has demonstrated that if the right director is at the helm and if there's enough money behind the project, I mean, look at Fate, then it can deliver some really great stuff, especially when it comes to action. So,
yes, I mean, it's a very visually interesting show, at least. It's, like I said, very colorful, very fluid.
Oh, yeah. How many episodes does it have?
It had 13 episodes, technically 12. Because, the story runs up through the 12th episode, and then the 13th episode was kind of like a one-off special. I think there's going to be another special episode at some point. It was kind of funny what they did with the special episode. So the main story, let's talk about the game one quick second. When you start the game off, you can choose the gender and appearance of your character, and the default name, the male character's name Gran, and the female character is Jita. Mm-hmm. So the main part of the anime follows Gran and, his struggle against the Empire and trying, meet, basically make new friends along the way sort of thing. And the special episode at the end is Jita's episode. So let me word it like this. If Gran is the free-to-play player just struggling to make their way along, Jita is the whale who is constantly pouring in the iTunes and Google Play cards to get to where she needs to be.
Okay.
Because it's like, oh, look at all these friends we have, and it's like, these are all the SSR rank characters. What? Like, what?
Well,
whereas with Gran, all the characters he meets, are the ones you meet organically along the way in the story of the game, which is pretty cool too, though.
Maybe they felt like, okay, this would work better in terms of a story, like instead of just buying your friends. That wouldn't make that much sense. I don't know.
That's true.
Are there stories in the game completely separate stories, or is it just like Jita is the female avatar while Gran is the male one, and their paths are, except for whichever character you decide to buy with money, or is something is like identical?
I mean, from playing the game as far as I could tell, you just follow the same plot either way. So I think it was just them trying to have fun and say, hey, check out all this.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, that's fine. Like, if you do it like that, I mean, it's worked for Mass Effect, so whatever. Worked even better for the female, but I think more people like a femshep in the end than a male shepherd. So I don't know. Maybe they should have gone with Jita instead. Though Grant seemed to be like, just in terms of how the voice actor brought the character across and everything, seemed to be like a pretty nice protagonist, like an upstanding guy and everything, and like he immediately. When the girls appear before him and in trouble, he doesn't hesitate. He's like immediately, no, I'm gonna help out.
Yeah, they definitely make Gran out to be very standout kind of I want to help do what I can sort of guy. That's cool. Show has it's listed as having a series director and a director. I don't. Every time I see staff credits like this, and there's like two different kinds of like ex-director, I'm never quite sure, so I just kind of list them off both for us to discuss, because why not?
Shows what amateurs we are, because we really should look that up once in a while. Like, what exactly does the series director do, and what exactly does the overall director do? They probably have some different, responsibilities and everything, and probably one of them more in overseeing capacity than the other one. So I don't know. I really, it's one of those things you always think, oh yeah, I should look that up, even if we are only like bringing you these reviews from a fan perspective. Which is clear. We are not in. We have never been working in the industry. We have never like done this extensive research into series aside from the usual stuff that popped out at us or was interesting or was like, okay, I want to know more about that. But, at least those technicalities, maybe we should get right. And, we promise to better ourselves in that regard. So eventually. Yeah.
I mean, I just kind of Googled real quick series director, and I got something on Sakuga blog. So let's read this real quick. Series director is a person in charge of the entire production, both as a creative decision maker and final supervisor. They outrank the rest of the staff and ultimately have the last word. Series with different levels of directors do exist, however: chief director, assistant director, series episode director, and all sorts of non-standard roles. The hierarchy in those cases is a case-by-case scenario. Okay, so
it varies.
Exactly. So it's kind of hard to say if it's static from one show to another, because I'm jumping ahead slightly before I go back to what I was going to say, but looking at the credits for Adam at the beginning, like there was a chief director and a director, so yeah, it's the same sort of case, I guess. Mm-hmm. So, Granblue, the series director, was Ayako Kurata, who worked on stuff like both Magi series, Brotherhood, Final Fantasy 15, and Bodacious Space Pirates. So she worked on some pretty cool stuff in the past that we know has at least some level of quality.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed Brotherhood. Like, I haven't played Final Fantasy 15 yet, but that was like a nice introduction to the characters and their backgrounds, and the animation was solid and everything.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I don't know. Have we ever talked about Magi on the show?
No, we haven't really talked about it at length. Oh, when I say Magi, I guess I should say the A1 shows The Labyrinth in the Kingdom of Magic, because The Adventure of Sinbad was a different studio.
Yeah, it was Ledouche, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, the original Magi show, Sinbad is a kind of is a prequel to that, but also a side story because it's about one of the side characters. Is a great shonen show. It's very, it's an A1 show, and it's not like super high budget. Like there are some really good looking standout episodes, but it's like on your usual A1 shonen shows. So there are some really rough episodes, like really rough. But then there's also some really good looking episodes, and it's just an enjoyable plot with a really enjoyable cast of characters. Like the cast of characters in Magi is fantastic. I enjoy so many of them, and
I remember Magi was the show that took the time slot of Gundam Age after it wrapped, and I was like, what? I'll check this out. Why not? And I really enjoyed it too. So yeah,
really needs a third season soon. I mean, the second season
I'm hoping
ended on kind of a big cliffhanger. And some big developments, and that needs to. I mean, Sinbad was a nice in-betweener, but I can really do with some more, some more original Magi series. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get that soon enough. Anyway, back to Granblue Fantasy.
And then the other director, it was Yuki Ito, whose major credits included Nanoha Vivid and Vivid Red Operation, both shows that I was incredibly lukewarm on. I've spoke about Nanoha Vivid at length prior, so I don't think I need to continue to beat that dead horse. But Vivid Red Operation is just kind of something that exists because I think it was worked on by one of the guys who originally created Strike Witches, and it was like you should have just, you should have kept working on the other thing you were working on.
It totally fits considering what I remember of Vivid Red's character designs. Those look very Strike Witchy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And then on the composition and script side, I only turned up like two names, Nao Takizawa and Kyohei Terashima, and it looks like this is the only thing that they worked on. And I wasn't able to dive too deeply into the original staff credits for the game because I'm sure they're out there somewhere on some wikia. But I have a feeling they probably just called in the staff from the game just because that list seems a little small for, this sort of project.
Mm.
So, I'm sure that's probably what they did. Because, you look at original creator and it's just credited to Psy Games. Sure. Let's talk about the music because there was one very large name for the music in this game and in this show, and that name is Nobuo Uematsu.
Right.
And if you know that name, you've probably played a few Final Fantasies in your life.
Yeah, among other things, like
yes,
Jesus Christ. Nobuo Uematsu has done so many music, but yes, his most iconic stuff is from the Final Fantasy series. I think he scored.
I think at least the first 9, and then had contributions to the other games. Final Fantasy as a series has, great music, but, I think a lot of people, when they think Final Fantasy music, Uematsu is the name that they go to. Because, even though you can say what you want about 13, I sure will. But the music in those games is also really damn good. So
yeah, sure. But, he's the iconic composer, and, of course, he went off, to do some stuff for Mistwalker that was also great, like Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey, and he also has like a band that covers that does rock covers of Final Fantasy songs called Black Mages. Those 3 albums are great as well. So he's done a lot of cool stuff, and apparently the soundtrack for this show is good as well.
Oh, it definitely is. We have a couple other composers as well. There's Tsutomu Narita, who's done a lot of stuff for Square as well, and some other stuff in between. And then there's Yasunori Nishiki, who's done like a lot of Bimani stuff, like, the Konami rhythm arcade games and whatnot. So, yeah, Nishiki has done some interesting Konami stuff like Quiz Magic Academy 7 and 8, whatever the hell that is, I'm not going to lie. Some of the U-Beat games, Reflect Beat, Bimani 2DX. So those are the bulk of his contributions, and then he started working on Granblue earlier. Looks like earlier this year.
Okay.
So there we go. What else can I say about the show? I mean, like I said earlier, it's visually very interesting and colorful, and it has some neat fight sequences that are really well animated. It's got a fun cast. Like, it's really hard to dislike any of the characters because they play so well off of each other. Because there's Gran, like I said, the unassuming, kid who gets pulled into this big conflict. You have Luria, who has this power that links her to these basically ancients called the Primals. If you played Final Fantasy XIV, you probably know what a Primal is.
Mm-hmm.
And Catalina, who's basically her guardian, it's like the big sister type character, and she's pretty funny. They meet up with this sort of washed up skyship captain named Rackham. There's this mage in training named Io who's trying to find her master and bring him back home.
Those are definitely some RPG archetypes.
Yeah. So, you get the full gamut of characters and interactions, and it's really cool. Because,
right now I'm really sad I didn't go back to the series because, when you say the animation and the fights is really good and the cast of characters is fun, and is the story solid enough? Like, is enough happening?
I feel like a lot of it's been done before. The evil empire is out to get this magic stuff that can control the gods, and it's like, okay, we've seen this before, but I feel like the characters can at least carry their weight through the story. So,
well, and is at least enough happening in each episode, or is it like, okay, we have like this, I don't know, this end point where we fight the Empire, but nothing in between happens or something?
There is stuff that goes on in between. So
okay, so I mean that's important too. I can deal with a standard story if enough stuff is moving along. So yeah, we'll get to that in the other review. But I should maybe go back to it. It sounds fun enough. You seem to have enjoyed it. Well,
oh yeah.
I forgot to ask: is the first season finishing the story from the game, or is there more to?
Oh no, it sort of leaves off, because the game is an ongoing sort of thing. I'm pretty sure the story isn't wrapped in that either. So
we're maybe getting more seasons then.
Possibly. I mean, it'd be cool if they did. I mean, if you're a fan of the game, you've probably already checked out this show. And if you want something that's like a pretty good primer for the basics of the story, it also serves that purpose very well.
Umataro Tenma and Hiroshi Ochanomizu are two college students working in the field of cutting-edge robotics. The newest project, the humanoid robot prototype A106, or just 6, is not only equipped with a mighty amount of horsepower, but also with their concept for a daring new AI routine called Bewusstsein. While Umataro's main goal is to simply design the strongest and most effective robot in the world to revolutionize everyday life, Hiroshi wants to create a machine that can express a genuine form of human-esque compassion. Together with 6, Hiroshi's sister Ran, and many others, they embark on several adventures to prove the superiority of their design, But even those two geniuses don't have any idea what kind of development their endeavors kick off in Six's AI and how revolutionary their creation truly is. So, Atom the Beginning is a prequel to Astro Boy, which was created by the so-called god of anime, Osamu Tezuka, and is one of the most well-known properties in all of anime. And a franchise I haven't seen much of. So, I don't know about you, John. I think I've seen like a few episode snippets of the 2003 show here and there, and I know some of the old character designs and everything. I mean, who doesn't? Astro Boy's head shape is so iconic that we decided to use it as a part of our logo. But yeah, I'm barely familiar with the characters from the original show. How familiar are you with the franchise overall?
I mean, I feel like I have about the same level of familiarity that you do. So, I mean, seen like little bits here and there. At one point, I think we talked about this way back during Sneak Peek that you were saying you tried to look up the 2003 series, and I had as well. And it's like good luck. Yeah. Good luck finding it anywhere.
Yeah, for kids made it kind of impossible to find an unaltered version of this. And the only thing I've found so far is a version with Hong Kong subs, and I won't subject myself to that. And so I don't know, maybe someday they will do like a re-release of that on Blu-ray or something like that, and we'll actually get to watch it. Or maybe we'll get a remake of the actual Astro Boy show.
As we know, the original Astro Boy was aired in 1963, and then there was a 1980 series as well.
Yeah, many incarnations of this and side stories. We've talked about one in a previous episode in a news story, Pluto, which is pretty much a story set after the events of original Astro Boy, but in the same universe. And yeah, I've read the manga of that, and I'm familiar with some of the Astro Boy characters from that, but the designs are very different in that because it's done by Naoki Urasawa, who has done Monster and 20th Century Boys, and he has a wildly different style compared to Tezuka's. So there's not that much recognition there if you look at the old stuff. So I think we went into this series like Astro Boy rookies. Mm. There's not like one of the most fun things in prequels is like looking at the characters that you are familiar with from a series that is set further down in the timeline and see like, oh, that's what they look like when they were young, and that's how they behaved and everything. And then, oh, I recognize that version of that older character and everything. And that that we didn't really have that with that show, which I think might have been one of the main attractions or interesting points for people who are familiar with the Astro Boy franchise. I mean, we could, see some of the characters like Umataro Tenma and Hiroshi, God, he has a long second name, Ochanomizu. Those are pretty iconic designs that you probably have seen if you've seen like screenshots or designs from the old show or the manga or whatever. And you can recognize that and like, oh, okay, yeah, those are the characters. Especially Hiroshi, that turn into these characters, and that I can see that and everything like that. And probably some of the robot designs you have seen in one variation or another, and So, but aside from that, it's not like we could gain any, additional enjoyment from seeing the young versions of characters, from the franchise, because we're not that familiar with their, original version. So I don't know, like, what happened to Ran. I know, I know Tenma is still around. I know Ochanomizu is still around. Hiroshi is still around. I don't know what happens to Motoko. I don't know what happens to her brother and everything. Characters I'll get into later. So
most of my familiarity, now that I'm thinking about it, most of my familiarity with Astro Boy came from that Game Boy Advance game, Astro Boy Omega Factor, and one by Treasure.
Oh yeah,
which it has a little bit of an original story, but it's also sort of a nod to almost all of Tezuka's works. So
just so that our listeners know where we are coming from, we have not really any nostalgic feelings for this franchise, and maybe that was like something that the creators like were hoping for or like counting on, especially like in the first, when it comes to the first half or 2/3 of the series. But we'll get to that. Let's get the the basic facts out of the way first. So this prequel is based on a manga written and illustrated by Tetsuro Kasahara and co-written by Makoto Tezuka and Masami Yuki. I don't know if Makoto Tezuka is related to Osamu Tezuka. It would be too much of a coincidence, I think, if that wasn't the case. Probably some overseeing function or something. I didn't look that up. I'm sorry. But Kasahara also created a show called Ride Back, which I have seen the anime adaptation of. He wrote the manga, and there was an anime adaptation of that by Studio Madhouse. It's like a girl riding a motorcycle mech, and then gets pulled into a terrorist plot or something. And for what I remember it being kind of low key. Like the story was not that super interesting, but it was enjoyable for what it was, and the animation was kind of good. Like the mix of the CG mech model and the 2D girl riding it was pretty decent for its time. And Masami Yuki apparently wrote the remake of Birdie the Mighty, which I really enjoyed the anime adaptation of. Shame we'll never get a third season of that, I assume, though. I really thought that new Birdie show was really damn good. Yeah, so that's a shame. But anyway, the show, the anime adaptation of Atom the Beginning, is produced by Production IG. We've talked about them many times already. They're responsible for Pet Labor. They're responsible for Ghost in the Shell, Haikyuu, Psycho-Pass. They apparently also did the key animation for some of the episodes from the 2003 version of Astro Boy. So we got a bit of overlap there. As for the animation in Atom the Beginning, I have seen IG do better. Overall, in Haikyuu recently.
I thought that, that IG was just like one of the production partners, because there were two other studios working on this, Signal MD and Oriental Light and Magic. I mean, I usually go by whoever has the top billing, so...
Well, from what I can garner from the credits, it was at least, they both worked on the animation, like animation production. I don't know how far that extended, who did what. Maybe Production IG only did the in-between animation or did the key animation, but I can't clearly determine that. But yeah. So okay, it is a three-way part. The show I can remember, they have worked on some of the Pokemon series. And a show I very fondly remember from them is Shinkon Gattai Gorana. That was a really fun, raunchy mech show. But yeah, I've seen both studios do better. I don't know about Signal MD, but they're both third anyway, so whatever. But yeah, the animation in Atom the Beginning is a mix of traditional animation and CG, which especially Production IG has done a lot. So the models for Six and the other robots are CG, especially in the later parts of the show. But in certain key scenes, they use like 2D animation to highlight certain moments and everything. I mean, it's fine. I've seen worse CG, but I've also seen a lot more creative action scenes when it comes to the most parts of the show. I don't know how you felt about that.
I don't feel like all the CG is bad, but there's some parts where
some parts are stiff, like your usual problems.
They're a little stiff. I don't feel like it's super distracting, but it is.
It's not Berserk.
I don't think anything but Berserk is Berserk.
Yeah. I mean, it helps that those are machines, and I'm always willing to give, animation of machines and robots more leeway when it comes to CG.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also also in that department, there are vast differences depending on what series you're watching. Like, there's some really good-looking CG mechs. For example, what's the recent show? Gundam The Origin. Some really good-looking CG animation on the mechs. And I think Macross Delta was also pretty good there. And, then there are some, not so good examples. And I'd say Atom the Beginning is right in the middle. Some shots that look really good and or really like fine, and others look a bit janky. But like I said, I've seen worse, I've seen better. It's right in the middle for me. The director is Tatsuo Sato, whose only other noteworthy directional work so far, at least from what I can see, has been Martian's successor Nadesico. A show I've heard a lot about, but I have not seen. So I don't know if you watched that show.
Nadesco is a fun show. I enjoyed it. It's been a while, but I feel like maybe I should rewatch it someday. But it was one of those shows that definitely had fun with its premise.
That is the positive thing I could pull from his resume. The other thing that sprung out was he was also the series director for the Ninja Scroll TV show. Oof, and was that a hot piece of garbage compared to the movie, which I love, but goddamn. Anyway, like I said, the direction of the show is kind of standard stuff, nothing too riveting. That being said, the final fight is pretty cool. I think I'm not giving much away because it's all in the opening animation of the show, which is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
It looks really good. But yeah, I'm not giving much away by saying that the series culminates like in the robot wrestling event where Six has to square off against a bunch of other robots and eventually against another super strong humanoid robot called Mars and his owner, Dr. Lolo. By the way, has a weirdly deep voice considering her character design. It was like when she talked for the first time, I was kind of weirded out that I was like, whoa, lady, you look way too young for that deep of a voice. It's strange. I don't know, voice actor, but I don't know. It seemed like kind of a miscast in the beginning, but I don't know. It felt like they aged up her design a bit in the later episodes. Anyway, yeah, you still get some stiff CG movement here and there, but it's not bad, and there's some nice camera movement, especially like in the final fight and everything. The animation in the show itself doesn't look as good as in the opening, but what shows do. Like, few do. Some stuff from Bones.
You spend your budget on your opening so that everything can be keyframed.
Yeah. And, I mean, some of the shows get to that level of quality that their openings deliver. My Hero Academia comes to mind. Attack on Titan in certain, episodes. I'd say Adam never gets there. But there are some episodes that still look good regardless. So, how long did it take you to get into the show? Were you hooked from the start, or did you have some grievances or criticism on how, the show progressed in the beginning? Or, what was your overall stance?
I mean, I was into it and I enjoyed it, but I will concede that the story kind of moves at a snail's pace and it ultimately feels like it doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, almost. The first episode was interesting enough as a setup, but I felt the series, like you already said, snail's pace. It was really slow and very light on plot developments until like the last 2 to 3 of its 12 episodes, which is not a lot. And like in the beginning, we get some misadventures here and there. Like mainly we get introduced to different new members of the cast with each episode. But it all felt very prologue-y and kind of loosely connected. Like it felt like, okay, this is the very beginning of that story. And we got a lot of stuff to come, but we won't get to that at all in this season. And I don't know at what pace the manga moved. And if that was a bit, faster and they put some filler in the anime and, a bit more, character side stories and stuff like that. And hijinks, I don't know, for the kids and stuff like that to make it more friendly pace for them. I don't know. A lot of the stuff that seems like a definitive setup for later developments also doesn't really get resolved or anything. For example, the gang has a kind of ongoing battle with a hacker in the early episodes, but that gets wrapped up by a different party, and we don't really know yet if he was working for anyone else or how that woman who's investigating the accidents he caused is involved, or how Dr. Lolo is involved in that. So that's pretty unresolved and in the shadows right now. It's all kept kind of vague. I assume there's something happening with that later on in the manga, but I can't be sure. Maybe it was like one-off to introduce certain characters. And then there's there's Moria Tsutsumi, who is a competing scientist from another college lab. And his sister Motoko becomes part of the team around 6 because she initially wants to spy on Umataro and Hiroshi, to help her brother out. And, but then she kind of develops a real fondness for Hiroshi. Like, I don't know if they fall genuinely in love. The series didn't really go into that detail. But, they hang out together, and she's like, I like that. She often says like, oh, I like that about you and stuff like that. And, it feels like she gets a genuine interest in him. And I don't know if they're married, like in the real Astro Boy show or something, if she even exists in that show. So, I don't know where that will go. She feels like a nice character. But yeah, her brother has like this kind of design that makes you feel main antagonist. But they haven't done much with him yet either. So I just have to assume most of what happens in this season is a setup for stuff that happens later in the manga, which is still running, by the way, which is all right if they do something with that, like if they follow up on this eventually. But I don't know how much of the manga is covered by this season, and if we'll even get another season. I don't know how successful the show was. So, no guarantees on if we ever get any payoff or resolution to that at all. So be aware of that if you want to jump into the show. You might have to read the manga to get any satisfying developments in that regard. Yeah, pretty slow start, which was a bit tough for me to sit through. And we also don't learn much about the characters' backgrounds and history or anything, unless I overlooked something.
I wonder if they kind of skimped on that just because, they are established characters and, the audience that we're catering to will know about them, but what about the people who are coming in with less knowledge? Oh, well.
Yeah, I wonder how much they went to the character background of those specific characters in the original Astro Boy shows. And, how much you see of the characters becoming what they were later. I mean, probably not too much. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done this prequel manga and anime. Like, there's a brief flashback to how Hiroshi and Umataro became research partners, but that's about it. And, you don't see anything of their childhood, how they became interested in robotics and stuff like that. And if there's, any stuff that happened to them that, makes... that gives them some kind of super depth or anything. And, thus it was a bit tough for me to engage with them on an emotional level because you just don't learn that much about them aside from, their kind of superficial appearances and motives, which they, state outright and what they want to do and why they're developing 6 and Bewusstsein and everything. So that was kind of all a bit bare bones.
Yeah, there's another show that's currently airing that had a lot of the same issues.
Okay. Interesting to learn what that show is. I guess you will bring that up again once you review it.
Yeah, well...
if you review it. Okay.
I mean, I think you might review it, and I will have lots of scathing comments to make along the way.
All right. Okay. Interesting. We'll see. But yeah... I think most problematic in, the lack of character development and emotional engagement was Umataro. Who is the guy who creates Astro Boy later on. And he's kind of a dick.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he also is in Astro Boy. Didn't he create Adam to replace his dead son and then cast him aside because he wasn't real enough or something? Is that how the story goes?
Something along those lines, yeah.
So yeah, at least there's consistency. He apparently was already a douche in his youth. I mean, okay. That's fine. It's just hard to, like that character. Like he is really arrogant. He and Hiroshi have a nice dynamic. Like you can see that they care for each other, that they're like partners, and they like kind of share the same goals, just have different methods and everything. And they always, even if they have like their fallouts on certain occasions, they always find back to each other, and that's cool. But you really feel like there's this underlying misguided vision that, you know, and like coldness and arrogance and everything that is in his character. And that makes him kind of interesting, but they don't do enough with it to make it like interesting enough for you to care. He just comes across like a dick most of the time, like an asshole. It's like, okay, carry on. I don't care about you. And every time he opens his mouth, and especially like in parts of the later episodes, I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, stop being an asshole.
Like he insists that Six refer to him as Tenma-sama, and it's like, okay, all right.
Yeah, and you know, he also, when Six is damaged, he's like, we don't need him anymore. Or if he doesn't survive this fight, he was a piece of garbage to begin with. And it's like, yeah, great. It's like, you're a nice guy. You are a nice piece of shit. Anyway. So that was a bit problematic. I mean, you can build up a character as an asshole, but maybe you should like slowly get there and give good reasons for a character to behave like that. And we don't really get that. Like, we don't know why he behaves the way he does, and that doesn't help me feel any kind of sympathy for that character. And he's one of the main protagonists, so that's a problematic.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, the side characters are fine and everything, but they're also not that interesting yet. Also not any real background on them, and no real developments. I mean, Run is interesting because she's like this kind of closed off but genius girl who really cares about Six and everything, but she doesn't talk a lot, and it's, you know, they don't really that much with her. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe there are some more interesting things they can do with the characters, and they can take some interesting places they can take the characters to, or will take the characters to. But so far they haven't done that yet. So I was waiting for that the entire time. And yeah, honestly, the most interesting stuff happens in the last 2 episodes. Not only because of Six's fight against Mars, that is like from an action standpoint, that was like the best thing that happens in that show, but also character-wise, because due to certain events you could have seen coming, kind of, because you know where that show should be going. Six begins to develop a small spark of self-consciousness, and well, if you consider where the story eventually has to end up, with Astro Boy being like kind of this autonomous kind of human robot. And this is a prequel, so yeah. If Tenma is able to, create a robot like that in his future, he has to start somewhere. But yeah, Six begins to develop a small spark of self-consciousness, begins to self-reflect and everything, and that was super interesting. And that was pretty much like the entire last episode. And I expected this to happen much, much sooner. I wish that the whole show, pretty much from the beginning, was about that. And they very slightly tease the beginnings of that here and there, but not nearly enough and not soon enough. Like, really, 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 really slightly. And yeah, like I said, the final episode is all about that and was the most interesting and engaging stuff the show had to offer. And, I know that Six had to make certain experiences to warrant that kind of growth and development, but it feels like a lot of the stuff happening in the first 2/3 of the show were set up and filler and could have been used instead to, better tease and develop that aspect of the story, and of Six's character. And I think I'd have enjoyed the show more if they had done that. Like I said, the last episode is really good, and it's like certain parts of it are really heartbreaking and make you worry about the character and everything. And the show goes into some kind of dark places, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool stuff. This is what I wanted from this show. Why did we get that in the last episode? So yeah, I really hope. I mean, the final episode delivers a cool promise for a possible future season. So if we get more, and if they quicken the pace a bit and focus on like Six's inner workings and how his development affects the other characters, that could be really cool. And so yeah, this is what this show is. This show is a promise to future developments. The question is if it will follow up on that, if it even get the chance to do that, because I don't know if we'll get another season. No idea. Like I said, the manga is still running, so the chance for that happening is there, depending on how well the show like went over with the audience and everything. And yeah, so we'll see. But just as a standalone season, I think Atom has a lot to be desired for. Like there is much room for improvement. And also, you know, if we get a new season, some payoff for the hacker and Dr. Lolo's stuff would be nice as well. so we'll see. But yeah, I enjoyed parts of that show, but not nearly enough to like recommend it as a standalone thing. If there's a new season, if stuff gets followed up on, if, you know, the development of Six's character and, you know, how him developing a consciousness and becoming kind of human-esque and everything, if they like do a good job on developing that in a believable way and everything, like they did with the last episode, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing more of that show. The question is if that happens. We'll see.
I mean, I think you hit on all of it. Like, I'd like to see more of it, so we can actually, you know, see it go somewhere, because it has, you know, a decent enough setup, but, you know, it really leaves us hanging in the end. So
yeah, so we'll see. I hope there will be a new season, and if so, I'll check it out. And I not maybe urge you, but I recommend you wait for the second season and maybe check if people are saying, oh yeah, finally something is happening in the show and some stuff is followed up. Oh, I mean, if new season is happening, we'll review it eventually, and then you can listen to the show, and we'll tell you if it's worth checking out then. But for now, maybe wait, because I mean, you can watch like the first and last episode, or last 3 episodes, or last 2 episodes, and you get the best thing the show has to offer. You skip on some of the character introductions, but it's not dramatic, like I said. They're not that deep or well developed yet, so you're not missing out on much. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the show goes anywhere. I hope it does. But yeah, those are our 200 cents on Atom the Beginning. But since it's our last episode for the anime series of spring 2017, it's time for Best of the Season. Of course, we have to pick our winner for Best of the Season. For me, it was easy this time, very easy. But John, what was your pick for Best of the Season?
I feel like we're probably going to end up having the same answer, because even though I really enjoyed Sayakano, I liked the characters, and I liked the story and their struggle, I think I'm going to go with Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
And I wonder what your choice is going to be. Why don't you tell us?
Well, I'll tell you. My choice is Berserk. No.
Attack
on Titan Season 2. No, not Berserk. Never Berserk, sadly enough. I wish I could say Berserk Season 2. God, how I wish I could have said my favorite show of the season was Berserk. But no. Of course, it has to be Attack on Titan Season 2. Not even a close race. None of the competitors could reach Attack on Titan. Yeah, great. You know, after all this time for the second season, deliver on like so many promises, like a lot of important questions answered, a lot of big surprises and new developments, and definitely some cool fights. So yeah, that show like again upped the ante coming from its first season, and you know, of course, there are some like slow points in there, like Attack on Titan has, and I've heard like the new season might be a bit slower in certain parts, even more so because, you know, it has like pretty much the weakest plot, story arc from the manga in there, at least like probably its first half. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, the second season was like enjoyable from beginning to end. Lots of stuff happening, lots of interesting stuff, lots of bombshells dropped on our heads out of nowhere. And yeah, I really enjoyed that season, and I can't wait for the next one. Definitely good stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some more crazy revelations next year. I mean, I hope there are some equally crazy revelations to like one in particular that we got with this last season, but I guess that remains to be seen unless I could, read the manga. But, one of my friends is like, don't do that. You won't enjoy it as much. I was like, all right, fine.
Yeah, I mean, anime always, can improve the source material if done right, just by the virtue of it being animated and having voice actors and music and stuff like that. So, and I think especially in those departments, Attack on Titan does a lot to improve on its source material. Like the art in the manga is not that good. I think the show looks a lot better. And, the music, of course, is by one of my favorite composers. And, the voice cast is all around fantastic. So, yeah. Definitely, if you want to watch anything, if you want to consume anything Attack on Titan, I would really recommend watching the anime and not spoiling yourself by reading the manga. I hope that will end soon enough so the story doesn't get stretched out too much. The creator should wrap up when he thinks the story is at a good point to wrap up, not go on for ages. We have seen many shonen shows that have overstayed their welcome, and I don't want Attack on Titan to end up that way.
Definitely.
All right, but that's it for us for spring season 2017. We'll be on a break now until the new season starts, which is in about 3 weeks, I think. So check back with us then. We'll, of course, bring you our sneak peek for the new anime of fall season and deliver our first review from summer season, as usual. I hope you enjoyed our reviews of this season. I promise you that picking best of the season next time will be a lot harder.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know how you feel about summer season, but the problem is we had some leftovers from spring season, some really good ones. And, those two will at least compete for the top spot for me, and so it's gonna be a tough one. So it won't be as easy as this time.
Because I had 3 leftover. Well, technically 4, but one of them is not wrapping up this season. 3 leftovers, one that's spilling into next season, and then another new show that has been, well, quote unquote new, a new season of it that, could be up there as well. So we'll see.
So yeah, lots of stuff to talk about, and we'll see what we end up with as our pick for number 1. But for now, we're going to get off the air until the new season starts, so see you then.
Take it easy, everybody.
And that is a wrap on the 37th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to vrit.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for some interesting articles linked in our episode release posts. Follow us on Twitter at AnimeBrainFreeze. We tweet regular updates there. Leave us comments and questions on Facebook and our YouTube channel, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next show. Macht's gut.
See ya.
Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
We return to the Academy of Heroes
for a second season that goes above and beyond our expectations.
Plus Ultra!